guys, Demoman here with another video. That's right, we're now going to be kicking off our Star Citizen Warzone playlist. That's right, this is the first installment of many. So in this first episode, it's very important that we focus on the smallest scale skirmishes, which is actually down on the infantry scale. Now we're going to start out with infantry and ground stuff and then move our way up until the very epicenter where that sort of type of combat cannot get any bigger, and then we will then move on to more of the spaceborne combat later down the line through this video playlist. So first off, I'd like to talk to you guys about the very beginnings of infantry combat and that type of stuff. Now you gotta remember, every kind of engagement that happens in Star Citizen, especially infantry based engagements, is not usually going to be just two groups of highly armed and well-trained individuals suddenly happen to stumble across one another on a planet's surface. That just won't happen. These kinds of conflicts will be rare, but they will happen fairly frequently compared to the larger scale ones on this list. So at the very beginning, how we're going to do this is we're going to do something which is called tactical escalation. And what that means is, as the time of a conflict progresses, then more resources will be pooled, more troops, more weapons, maybe ships and things like this will be called in, and that's just basic standard protocol for anyone. Hell, I mean, if you're trying to survive and you're with a group of buddies who are fighting maybe some other people on the ground or in a space station, if the fight is not exactly going your way and you are desperate for help, someone in your group may reach out to a friend, and then he will bring some of his buddies, and then it will escalate. The others will then maybe call for reinforcements. Maybe they're an established organization in that area, and they are able to pool more resources quicker than you, and all this comes into play. But before we can kick off with any of that, we have to first talk about the very basics and fundamental elements here. So the first small skirmishes like this, now I'm not going to be including the bounty hunter versus bounty target kind of thing. This is more of a Warzone thing, not a kind of like, you know, singular engagement kind of deal. So how we're going to start this situation is, it's very simple. Now, it's not going to be a ground installation like a bunker or something, because that is another topic for another time. Now, these kinds of conflicts are likely to occur maybe at like an offloading station, like on the ground, like an outpost. Maybe a ship is delivering some goods, and maybe those are a strategic asset to one organization that the other organization doesn't want them to have. So we'll say Organization A wants to drop off some materials with, let's say, a caterpillar at an outpost, where it can then be transformed into who knows what. Maybe it's dropping off ammunition, maybe it's dropping off weapons, we don't know. But Organization B, for some reason, has a very good reason to stop said Organization A from maybe fulfilling this objective of theirs, and there will be the use of ground troops. And you can also say the same thing for a space station. So a space station is slightly different, and we'll move on to that next. The ground base, the outpost, let's say, is basically the very early stages of this. It is the tip of the spear. It is how this will get going. So we'll set the scene. So here's the scenario. Organization A, they have an outpost. Maybe it's a halfway sort of point where maybe bigger ships come in to drop off lots of munitions, and that maybe gets put onto the bombers and other things. It is not heavily guarded because this organization is quite small. So let's say Organization A is coming in with their caterpillar, and they are set to drop off the munitions for the bombers, which will then be launched on a campaign against Organization B. Organization B gets a tip-off that this is going to happen, and they now deploy troops. So the troops are already on the planet. We'll move into dropship operations a little bit later down the line. So the troops are down on the planet. So now the determining factors before both of these forces will engage one another, obviously, is intelligence, surprise, all this sort of stuff. But also, fundamentally, it comes down to equipment. Now, as you guys know, if you've been with the channel a while, I used to do equipment videos. Now, I'm going to be starting those again, but at the minute, I'm a little busy and preoccupied. I am, like, you know, putting one video out a week here because I am working very hard to keep up a high level of quality and a decent length to these videos to give you guys, you know, a real watching material, not something that you can just basically flick through in 2 minutes and throw away and not learn anything from. This is basically a way for me to get the information across in a more structured format. So let's get back to it. So basically, weapons and equipment. So first off, the most fundamentally basic part of this is your damage output, your DPS. So damage per second. So basically, your guys have, let's say, if they had basic assault rifles, God forbid, you've all come out of, like, you just got in the game's just reached soft release, you've all got pistols, and you decide to embark on this mission. I don't think that that would happen. These kind of organized engagements most likely will have reasonably well outfitted troops for the operation. The guys defending the operation, maybe a few guards on board the ship, a couple of guards on the, let's say, outpost, and maybe some support lying in, like, the wings, ready to go. Like, you know, like maybe some guys just flying around doing shuttling cargo, whatever, and they can quickly double back and reinforce them. So basically, what will happen in the very beginning is the armor will be a very determining factor. But first we need to talk about weapons and choice of weapons. So choice of weapons matters greatly. So you've got all sorts of weapons. You got snipers, you got LMGs, you got, you know, SMGs, you got standard rifles, you got everything. Now, there will be DMRs and all these other weapons coming in soon. So fundamentally, if a team is under-equipped, say their weapons are not exactly the best, they are just bog standard, you know, they've got basic assault rifles, no sniper rifles, nothing like that, that will cause them great deals of problems if the other side is better equipped. Now, attackers don't always win. Now, there's always a saying that's been going around recently, especially with gaming, is the attackers always win. In this scenario, that is not true. Now, if these troops were to engage these other guys, they were unloading their Caterpillar, they have to act fast, for the simple reasons of the Caterpillar does have turrets, people could jump on those, and we all know what basically a size 1 can do to a guy. It's not pretty. So the very bottom of the spectrum here, we're going to say these guys are equipped with medium armor. They have okay assault rifles, let's say some bearing ones, and they're ready to go. They're ready to rock and roll. They have intelligence. They know exactly what's being dropped off, but they don't know the exact numbers of how many people are there, and they're ready to go on the offensive. They have a sniper providing overwatch. Now, Team A, obviously that's Team B, they're on the assault, but Team A, they are maybe a little bit more relaxed. They got some guys just in flight suits, some guys in civilian clothes, maybe some of them just have pistols, some of them maybe have a couple of assault rifles, like maybe 2 of the more heavily armored guys. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It won't go well for the defenders in this circumstance. They are outgunned and out-armored. Now, armor is something that you have to take into account on a whole many factors of things. Now, if the world has high gravity, you're going to be very slow, you're going to be cumbersome. If you're in heavy armor, it's going to be even worse, and all these things come into factors. So one man in heavily armored armor could essentially take down a group of guys just wearing civilian clothing, no problem. Like with the right equipment and the right armor, he should be able to take them down easy peasy. But in this scenario, these guys are on the attack and these defenders aren't necessarily prepared. So here's a scenario. So Team A, they've just landed the Caterpillar in the clearing maybe of a jungle, and that's where the outpost is, and it's where they restock their gladiator bombers and whatnot. The gladiators are basically due to come in the next day. They just want to get everything prepared before they go on their raid, and all of a sudden Team B has been waiting in the jungle for this very moment to happen. They rush the area, they assault them, they unleash havoc, they fire all sorts of rifles, and this is it. Not many of them are packing grenades, funnily enough, but for some reason Team A has the grenades. Now, grenades are going to play a huge role. Now, going back a chapter. Now, when you talk about your Star Citizen character, especially in a game of permadeath, so these stakes are pretty high. You could get your head blown off and permanently killed right there. If you bleed out, you essentially lose a life. So there are many different determining factors that can factor into your permadeath. So adding on to this, the whole sort of augmentation of your character as well really does mix it up a bit. Now, as we know, cybernetic limbs have been confirmed a very long time ago, but so has also augmenting your character illegally with genetic enhancements. You can do things like this with a Hope class Endeavor and things like that. So there's another factor to it. If these guys are assaulting you and they are essentially super soldiers, you're screwed. Even if you're in power armor and you're ready to rock and ruin, if these guys are augmented so that they can sprint for longer, they can move faster whilst holding their weapons, and their armor affects them less in terms of their mobility, you're going to be outmaneuvered. And that is bad. Being outmaneuvered, if you've played Star Marine and you're wearing heavy armor and you come up against a guy with light armor, he can easily outmaneuver you if you're not in such a, if you're not in a long-ranged engagement. If it's more close quarters, he'll be able to outmaneuver you. But on long range, he's screwed because he has to close the gap over a wide field, like if he was EVAing towards you. So that's it. So it's genetic or mechanical augmentations. Now this is where grenades come into play. If someone has cybernetic parts, it's obvious how EMP grenades are going to react with those. They will deactivate them. Your character may count as having a ruined limb for a moment of time before he's able to recover. So he will basically be limping along as his mechanical leg just dies on him and he's just dragging it behind him, like that scene in Mad Max the Road Warrior when he gets his kneecaps blown out. It's not going to be pretty. So that's the trade-off. If you have cybernetic limbs, yes, you will not bleed out if you take damage to said limb, but here's the problem. EMP weapons and distortion weapons may cause that limb to just fail, and it may not be able to be recovered. It may just completely break down and then it's done. Then you're literally back to having one leg, and you'll be basically, crawling after the enemy like some sort of demented T-100. So let's say Organization A. Some of them have maybe mechanical parts, and that's maybe why they don't have the armor. They don't necessarily care for it. They have mechanical parts because they've been wounded before and they're expecting an attack. Team B, the assaulters, have no augments whatsoever. Now this is where it gets interesting. Team A, they see the attackers right at the last second. Team B opens fire, knocks out maybe a couple of the Caterpillar crewmen who are just unloading a crate, and some of the NPCs that are also been hired to do the same task. They're down. Now Team A immediately goes to the storeroom, grabs armor, locks doors, battens the hatches, but it's too late. The guys are already in your lines. They're assaulting you. Bullets are flying. Lead is going everywhere. And then Team A launches grenades. Now, grenades, there's different types. You got cluster grenades. You got EMP grenades. You got incendiary grenades. You got radar grenades. You got all these types of things. So one of them maybe throws a radar grenade. Now they know where all your dudes are, and that's a problem. You come up across in your power armor, maybe the Team B guy runs up in his armor, spots the Team A guy, unleashes fire. Team A guy has mechanical limbs, and he hits him in the leg a few times, but he gets away. Now, he doesn't notice the mechanical limb straight off, so he thinks, okay, he's probably going to bleed to death. He's in civilian clothing, he's done for. Now, that guy has a mechanical limb, so he's able to get away. He then runs around the back of the building and pops Team B guy right in the back of the head. Didn't expect that to happen. So as this conflict is evolving, at the same time, Team A will also be calling for reinforcements. Now this comes into more equipment. So this is where tactical escalation comes into play. Team B is expected to quick in and out operations. Now they are bogged down in a full swing conflict. They got guys taking cover on board a Caterpillar, firing through the doorway. All sorts of crazy madness is taking place on board the Caterpillar and inside the outpost. It's a rather large outpost. It's maybe a supply dump, so it'd be quite big. So in the corridors of the outpost, they got lasers and bullets flying, grenades being thrown. And Team B has met a lot stiffer resistance than they first thought was possible. They were like, oh, okay, this should be a quick in and out, and it's not. Team A now has the chance to call for reinforcements. Team A reinforcements come down, and this is where things get really messy. Now we're going to go back to the equipment side of things. They are equipped with some of the more dangerous weapons. There are some really nasty, heavy weapons out there that you should be aware of, because, you'll want to get a hold of these bad boys. Right out the bat, Team A's reinforcements. One of the guys is carrying a HP-21I Thunderburst cannon. Now, not many of you may have heard of this weapon, but it's actually one of my favorites, funnily enough. Basically, the description on it goes like this. The latest advancement in force manipulation, the Bearing HP-21I is a 25mm handheld weapon system designed to provide ground forces with indirect fire option for area of effect strikes, especially useful for displacing entrenched opponents. It is a grenade launcher. It is a monster. This thing will basically blow holes in people and ground and armor and all sorts of things. Grenade launchers are a nightmare if you're fighting them. They can really disorientate you. If you've played any other first-person game and someone's firing a grenade launcher in a chaotic environment, you'll know that this is basically it. You have no clue what's going to happen. You're probably going to die. It's game over. Well, that's it. If you have a team that is equipped, maybe they also have, you know, the Bearing Ballistic LMG, which is the P8 LMG. And we'll see what it says here. Bearing's P8 LMG is a 7.62mm ballistic light machine gun. Like most of the P8 series, the back of the P8 LMG's mag well is elongated. This is the case to the length of the larger magazine that the P8AR, the P8 LMG, features a top attachment rail and a long hand grip like the 7.62mm chambered version of the P8AR. The LMG also comes with an adjustable stock that can be locked in place with a horizontal beam extending from the pistol grip. So this is an incredibly accurate LMG. So reinforcements arrive. They're equipped in heavy armor. These guys are hard hitters. Team A's reinforcements have arrived. They're ready to rock and roll. These guys are equipped with the best equipment. They've got guns. These guns can also get attachments, guys. You will be able to augment your weapons like you can with your ships. You'll be able to change the sights, better grips, maybe extended magazines, extended barrels. We're also talking different types of sights, new bud stocks, these types of things. If the weapon has the option available, you will be able to modify it. So this new squad arrives. They're ready to rock and roll. They immediately toss a couple of Lidar Grenades, and boom, there you go. Now you have another problem. The Lidar Grenade. The Lidar Grenade gives off false signals. That's what it does. You throw this thing and it pings radar sigs to your enemies. So these guys who are now bogged down in this assault have almost finished mopping up Team A. So Team B is just about mopping up Team A when Team A's reinforcements arrive. More Lidar pings go off. Team B now has to split. Team A reinforcement team arrives and assaults with full force. Now, these types of conflicts will escalate exponentially. Okay, they will grow, because if the assets are that valuable, it will go up fundamentally. Now, this conflict, we'll say, will skip ahead maybe 20 minutes. This is where the use of more serious ground equipment for soldiers basically gets. This is where the pinnacle of ground equipment gets put into play. And yes, usually people think of railguns and maybe the rocket launcher that they're going to be bringing in soon. All these other types of weapons is the best a foot soldier can get, but it really is not. The top of the food chain when it comes to ground combat is the Titan suit that you can see on your screen now. The Titan suit is a Goliath. It is a monster. This is the worst thing to run into if you are on foot. God forbid you're not wearing any armor, you're done. Even if you're wearing armor, you're in deep crap. This thing will basically vaporize you before you even know what hit you. This thing is a monster. It is a Goliath. It can carry a size 1 ship weapon, which will ruin any infantry soldier no problem, and can also take apart ground vehicles pretty easily. Now, this suit alone is enough to put fear into people. Now, in a game with permadeath, now this is something else you need to take into account, is this human psychology. If you have a bunch of guys who are in a conflict, maybe some of them are like, well, I don't want to perma-die because I don't want to lose that reputation I've been grinding all week, or I don't want to lose this, and they move into that conflict. Suddenly Team B's forces, which are now outmatched and outgunned, suddenly have to now compete not only with these soldiers who are prepared to handle with them, but a goddamn Titan suit as well. A Titan suit shows up, and that's it. It's pretty much game over. The problem is, a Titan suit does cause a lot of collateral damage if you think about it. It's not cheap to use, and it's definitely not going to be cheap to maintain. You're going to need a lot of reputation to probably get a hold of these from the military, but I'm sure there's other ways of getting a hold of them in the game. Hell, they might even sell it before release. I sure hope so. I would definitely try to grab one. Titan suits are cool. But yeah, a Titan suit is the pinnacle of ground equipment. So that was a brief overview of a small conflict. So I tried to basically paint a picture of a small conflict using various types of equipment. But equipment and skill is where it really comes in, such as training. Training, another thing. So it depends on the type of target. If you're basically fighting guys who are dedicated to mining or salvage or trade or a non-combat profession, chances are they're not going to be that great in on-foot combat. But if you're fighting a organized and well-trained group of individuals, you'll see them using tactics and formations and all sorts of things to their advantage when on foot. Also surprise tactics. All sorts of other different things to really help them get the foot ahead in combat. So that's the very basics of ground warfare. This expands over a wide wide field. So EVA combat on a moon. This is completely even like more hectic. You've got guys who have their suits ruptured. You're gonna need guys with oxygen pens. You're gonna need guys with medical equipment. Worst case scenario, someone gets hit by an explosive in space, because then they're not only losing a lot of blood, maybe they got a ruined limb, they need to be rushed immediately, but their suit is also ruined. They can't fix that quickly with an oxygen pen. It's done. They're gonna probably die there and then. It's game over for them. But then we're gonna take this a step back, and we're gonna fuse the two. We're gonna take the lack of oxygen environment and the Earth-like environment. Basically, we're gonna do this on a space station. So, space stations. Space stations are nodes, and as I said before, nodes will be able to be purchased by players. So, let's say a space station has been purchased by an organization. We're talking it's way down the line now after soft release. Organization A owns the space station, and they know an assault is coming. Organization B is prepared for siege warfare on said station. So, on the station, we'll say there are 3 guys with Titan suits, 2 full squads of guys fully armored, ready to rock and roll. None of them have cybernetic or genetic upgrades. They're bog standard humans. They have nothing good going for them other than they've got a quick wit, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, they're screwed. But they have decent equipment. Let's say they all have maybe bearing weapons. They put a lot of faith in the manufacturer. They've all got bearing equipment of different ranges. They've got LMGs, they've got shotguns, they've got SMGs, they got standard machine guns, they got marksman rifles, DMRs, and yeah, they're ready to rock and roll. So grenades also come into play and things like this, but they're not packing anything too serious because it's their space station. They want the use of the least amount of explosives as possible. Team B, however, doesn't really care if they blow a hole in the space station. They're there to basically knock the station out from the inside and possible recovery. They're not here to just flatten the thing, or else they would have brought a capital ship. This is just to basically seize the outpost from enemy hands and maybe recover as possible and extract as many assets as possible. So Team B, they've gone for a different route. They don't want Titan suits slowing them down. They've got guys who are cybernetically enhanced. So they are going to be able to run for longer, maybe not bleed out as much. They got heavy armor. Because they're cybernetically augmented, maybe they do not receive the same drawbacks as basically having fully organic components. So maybe they can run in heavy armor like you would in medium armor. Small buffs like this. It's a trade-off, you see. So they're in their heavy armor. They're ready to rock and roll. They're fully prepared for the conflict ahead. Except these guys have gone for laser weapons. Reasons why, we cannot go into detail. Nobody knows. Now, this is just basically a test also for equipment and whatnot. But they are packing serious firepower in the form of grenades. And they also have other types of devices like this. But Team A does have one type of grenade. They have EMP grenades. And this is where it changes the game. So, Team B, they assault the fortress space station. Bullets and lead are flying, shells are flying, bursts of lasers are coming from the space station as the ships approach. One of the dropships gets completely decimated on the approach, the other slams into the pad. Doors swing open, guys come pouring out, and they hit the side of the space station. They hack through the first door, and they close the area, and they pressurize it. Second door opens, a hail of laser fire comes flying at them. They fire back, a couple of them drop maybe, and they destroy some of the defenders, and they're in. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. On board a space station, we know they'll behave like ships, and they spoke about this before. Space stations will use the new item system, such as they will have components, they will have all sorts of different things like this. So EMP grenades essentially will shut off a section. You can turn off the lights. Team A throws these EMP grenades at the soldiers. Not only will they knock out some of the mechanical soldiers' parts, aka causing them to fall on the floor and be completely ineffective, but also knock out the lights. Team B is now even more disorientated than before. Some of the guys are on the floor and they can't move, and it's pitch black. All they can see is a bright light in the distance where the lights are still on, and laser and bullet, all sorts of madness coming flying down the hallway. What do you do in that situation? Grenade launcher, that's what you do. Team B is packing a grenade launcher because it's not their space station. They unleash hell, grenades flying down, and all of a sudden the lights go out on the other side and the fire stops. Then the Titan suit would walk around the corner, and then it would be good night Vienna, or else, or unless these guys have defensive weapons. Now, I know right now everyone's complaining about the Scourge Railgun basically being garbage, and the rocket launcher is not going to be useful against ships, but you gotta remember, in the Star Citizen universe, there's not much that troops can carry that can combat ships, because if there is anything they can use that can really defeat a ship, then it's most likely that if that weapon of that size can defeat a fully shielded spacecraft, they'd be more than capable of fitting said thing on a spaceship, and then all of a sudden you have a ship that's basically two-shotting or three-shotting other ships, and then it becomes a problem in the lore, and also becomes a problem in the whole logic of the thing. If you have a weapon like that that can be mounted on infantry, then it's definitely going to be on spaceships, and then spaceships only get tougher to avoid being killed by this weaponry, and vice versa, and the troops will be left in the dust. So here's the problem. Yes, ground weapons that we have right now, and the ones that are planned on the horizon, are going to be useless at taking down ships compared to the way ships deal with ships. The time to immobilize is what's going to be about. Time to kill is going to be increased, thus making it even harder for troops to shoot down ships without vehicles. But this is why these weapons exist. These grenade launchers, these railguns, and these rocket launchers designed to take down ground vehicles and Titan suits. Titan suits will otherwise run rampant, killing everybody easy peasy. They're going to be slow, they're going to be cumbersome, and there's going to be some areas they cannot access. On a space station, there's also less areas for them to travel, so it's kind of predictable where they're going to move. So you have a couple of guys with railguns, they fire down the corridor, a missile flies down straight afterwards. You hear the two railgun shots impact, the thing is sent reeling backwards. It's critical, and the rocket plows into its cockpit, and boom, there you go. The driver is gone. Half his torso has been removed. The top half of the vehicle is blown in smithereens as the two legs walk forwards a couple of paces, steaming from the hips, and then just collapse like something out of a bad RoboCop animation. So yeah, that basically will sum up why you use these types of weapons and the kind of equipment you want to take with you. Drawbacks of cybernetic equipment is things like EMPs and disruption weapons will basically immobilize your character. It will cause your character to either lock up or collapse onto the floor, most likely. That's very bad. If you have, let's say, 2 mechanical arms and 2 mechanical legs, you're gonna be a little bit like the knight in Monty Python's quest for the Holy Grail. It's not gonna end too well. It won't be there saying, "Ah, it's just a flesh wound." No, you'll be there on the floor, mechanical limbs completely failed, just like, "Ah, 'tis but a scratch," you know, just like head bobbing around saying, "Come on, I'll bite your shins." It's not gonna end well. So yeah, that's basically the drawbacks of this type of conflict. Now, this is very, very early days. A lot of these things are bound to change. Now, this is just the information that we're given at the moment, and I'm trying to run with what I've got so far. I've got at least 200 pages of this stuff written out in text document format of all this information so I wouldn't forget it, and I have to keep going back to my notes every once in a while. But yeah, that's the very basis of ground combat. The very early stages is going to be basic troop combat, will be basically equipment, so armor. There's many different armored manufacturers out there. First few manufacturers that you may already know is Clark Defense and, you know, these types of things. And then you'll also have the pirate ones. I can't remember what they're called, the manufacturer for them. But yeah, they have all different types of their armor out there. Like you have the heavy outlaw. I think it's called Ender armor. I can't remember. But yeah, there's all this different types of stuff that will basically change the game. Different armor will have different ratings eventually. Right now, your armor and all these things doesn't really have the desired, let's say, characteristics that it may have later down the line. Especially with your own personalizations, armor will be able to be customized. You will be able to paint your own stuff eventually with a hex code, but I'm not sure how far away that is. But yeah, when it comes to this type of stuff, it's very important to know what you're going for. You don't want to mix and match a bunch of garbage together, or else you're going to get those results. Garbage. You need to have a desired plan in mind. You need to have an idea of, right, these types of weapons do this, this type of armor does this, I need to basically do this role, so what would fulfill this the best? So let's say you have a heavy weapons guy. Chances are his heavy weapon will slow him down enough as it is, and you don't want that heavy weapon to maybe be lost immediately. If he's an LMG carrier, he's going to be the one that will draw the attention and most likely want to be tanking the hits for the rest of the group because he's where all the fire is going to be coming from, so he'll most likely be focused down first. So heavy LMG guy, you'll probably fit him in the heaviest armor you have, and a few med pens, a few grenades, and you definitely want to give him a Lidar grenade for the simple reason of when he needs to make a hasty retreat, he doesn't have the speed to get away, but what he will have is the element of confusion. If he can throw a grenade that'll send a false radar ping to someone, then they'll be distracted and maybe go the wrong way, and it'll give him a chance to get away. Now, like I said, it's down to equipment. Things like that are pivotal. Lidar grenades will save slower moving characters' lives because they cannot outrun the enemy. They can only basically try to deceive them and make them go the wrong way and buy themselves a decent amount of time to fall back to another fortifiable position and then return fire from there. Another key thing to note here, guys, is that a lot of this, as I said before, is subject to change. The game is in active development, and this is just from the information given on basically a future glimpse, a picture of what the future could possibly be like. So yeah, when it comes to all these different things, such as armor and weapons and choosing manufacturers is very important. When you do go to buy a gun in the future, you'll have to know the brand and whatnot, and then you'll have to think to yourself, should I maybe buy this Cossack Arms gun, or should I go for this bearing weapon? Bearing weapons are said to be the main weapons of the UEE, and they're supposed to be very, very rugged, very reliable. Now, reliability is something that will come into play a little bit later. Cossack Arms, however, may not be as reliable. They'll weigh just as much. They'll be made. Cossack Arms is basically a lot like Drake Interplanetary of the weapons world. They're going to be heavy. They're going to be slightly unreliable and maybe need a bit of maintenance here and there. And worst case scenario, you don't maintain it, it might have a catastrophic failure and blow up in your face. But then you have other weapons maybe that are more refined. Like you have the Gemini series of weapons, which are going to be very lightweight and very effective. And all this type of stuff. Everything comes into play when it comes to choosing your weapons. So this is the very first episode of Star Citizen Warzones. I wanted to give you a taste of the kind of stuff that the infantry will be having to go through and basically being equipped with. But we're also going to be expanding with vehicles in the next episode, and that's where the real insane stuff will start to take place. And the tactical, you could say the tactical escalation is going to go through the roof. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. So, if you haven't noticed, I do have a sore throat. I'm still getting over that flu or that sickness or whatever the hell it's turned out to be. Blessings from Nurgle. If you're a 40k fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I just want to first off, though, above all else, I want to say huge thank you to you guys coming to watch the videos and commenting and liking and subscribing. It does help the channel go a long way. It does help the channel grow. And I would seriously like to say a heartfelt thank you to those of you who make these videos even a possibility of happening, even on a regular schedule like this, is the Patreons. These guys are what are keeping this channel running. So I want to say a huge thank you to Adrian Miller, Andrew Burton, Bill Briant, Brandon Kelly, Brandon Manuel, David Toombs, Azuman, Ghost1800, welcome buddy to the Patreon, and welcome to the channel, Samuel Pitt, Tom Tabola, and Yellow. Thank you guys so much. But yeah, you may not know, if you have noticed, I do have a sore throat, as I previously mentioned, and it is killing me. But yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you guys for watching the videos, and I can't say a big enough thank you to you guys for supporting the channel. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, good things to come in the future. I look forward to expanding on the Warzone playlist. I'm looking forward to also getting back in some theorycraft videos. I know those are pretty popular with some of you guys. So yeah, that'll be pretty good fun. So yeah, I would also like to finish editing a role video I'm working on and all that good stuff. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you for watching all the videos and subscribing. If you want to support the channel, check out the Patreon. It is in the description below, along with a whole bunch of good stuff. So you know the drill, commanders. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse. If you're looking for a Bar Citizen event, why not check out Bar Citizen San Antonio, Texas? That's right, there's a Bar Citizen event for you to go to. Check out the description for all the relevant information, such as a map, a link to their Discord, and all that good stuff. And I cannot recommend it enough. It's full of the nicest individuals you could possibly hope to meet, all itching to talk about Star Citizen and sci-fi and what the hell ever. So why don't you jump on down there and say hello to some of the guys, and I hope you have a wonderful and amazing time.